With that, time is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for taking the time today. Look forward to talking with you all. I'm interested to hear from your perspectives as we go through some of this instruction. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Very informal as far as presentation, so stop me anytime. My name is Swyers. I'm Chief of Strategic Plans and Programs at the COE. I'm one of two people that are left that have been there from the beginning. I started as a contractor with Booz Allen, helping get the COE started, and switched over about 3 years ago now to join the civilian workforce. Prior enlisted as an intel analyst going back into the 90s, and so I've had a very varied career through the Air Force and tied into a lot of different things. But I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about COE, how we can help you, some of the things we do. Hopefully some of you have utilized us before and have some experience, and if you can share that as we go through some of this or have any questions or things to add on to some of the things we talk about, please feel free to step in with that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the business case analysis process that you all on the FMSOC side are, sounds like, working those diligently, and we'll get to hear how some of those are going here in a little bit as well. And then Captain Taylor will talk about some of the portfolio analysis activities we've been doing for a little over the past year or so. Kind of a new capability that we've been offering out to the field. So COE, how can we help you? What can we do for you? Our mission statement, we provide expert, on-demand, specialized financial analysis for decision support to Air Force installations and major commands. Big emphasis on decision support. A lot of times you'll hear us referred to as costers, and that has a historical connotation. That's certainly a big component of our skill sets. But over the last decade or so, decision support has been really the focus of what we're trying to provide our leadership at the base, the wing level, the MAGCOM level, helping our leadership make good decisions, good understanding of the resources that are being utilized, how we can leverage those resources. You know, none of us are sitting around fat, dumb, and happy anymore. As a former Intel guy, we used to be fat, dumb, and happy all the time. But you know, as far as how things have been going, there's been so many cuts. We're experiencing some significant cuts ourselves right now at the COE and moving into IMSC. Anybody's heard about that? So we're going through a lot of changes as well. So we're kind of experiencing a lot of what's going on in the field and helping people understand that these are limited resources that we have access to. This is a significant change from the post 9/11 environment where, you know, we used to joke if you could squeeze GWAT into your justification, you're probably going to get it funded twice. So, you know, now things are being cut more and more and more, and that's a very, very different environment than we've experienced in the past. So how do we do that? We deliver on-demand consultant support, clear, unbiased analysis. We don't care what the outcome is at the COE. We're just out there to help. We're just out there to help make a good decision. A lot of times at the installations, as you all know, people get married to an idea, to an initiative, to a project. And that causes bias. That causes sort of a leverage toward making that be the outcome. Many times, especially in the early years when we'd have a request for a project, folks would say, hey, we need you to do an EA so we can build a new dorm. Well, the goal of an EA isn't to build you a new dorm. The goal of an EA is to determine the economic feasibility and whether it makes sense to build a new dorm. Or, really better, it's to determine how to best house airmen. And so building a dorm or renovating a dorm isn't the outcome that we're seeking out. The best resource decision is what we're seeking out with our analytical activities. And then expert training. Things like this, we teach multi-day classes at the installations, at the MAGCOMs, on business case analysis, on decision support, host-tenant support agreement, things like that. So we go out and try to kind of be a force multiplier, if you will, to try to help people understand some of the nuances, some of the things that are done with that, to where maybe they can do it a little more themselves with our support as they go through these activities. Number of different ways we can help you if you're a new analyst, kind of trying to figure this stuff out. You know, you're going through here in a schoolhouse environment. That certainly helps, gives you some practice, gives you some understanding, helps you see different perspectives from your classmates and instructors to try to see some different ways to do an analysis. But if you go back and are you know, not confident in being able to execute one, we'll help you. We'll do everything from duty analysis for you to guide you along the way. We don't travel so much as we used to for projects. We used to travel all the time for that. That's scaled way back, but we're always an email or phone call away, or we do DCOs a lot now as well. So we can provide the expertise, some of the lessons we've learned in maybe similar projects at other installations, and give you some of that training as you're going through the process to help you build confidence and experience in doing these different types of analytical activities. With deployments and those types of things, many times an organization is just lacking the analytical, FM analytical personnel to be able to accomplish these things. Same thing, we're kind of bench strength for you all at the wings and MAGCOMs to try to help out whenever you need assistance in accomplishing your analytical work. Outside validation, back to our objective view, our unbiased view. Again, we don't care what the outcome is. We'll look for those types of biases and different types of things, making sure you're utilizing best practices in your analytical activities. And so if you've got a project that you've done or an analytical activity you've done, send it to us, we'll take a look at it and give you our thoughts. Kind of give you another set of eyes, a fresh set of eyes, if you will. Someone's completely removed from the activity. And if you're just not sure who to call, sometimes if you have just a general FM question, you're going all the way back to when we opened as an organization, people didn't know who we were at all. And so some of the FM newsletters and stuff would have FAQs in them, and one that was one of the very first ones was, hey, can the COE help me with my travel voucher? Well, that's not really what we're designed to do, but if you're having trouble with those types of things, we can at least point you in the direction. And so different types of FM questions, different types of systems questions. If the person you talk to doesn't know it, someone in our office does. We have such a diverse background of skill sets and experiences across the Air Force. I'm just one of many examples. You know, get someone that grew up in the Intel community but had an Air Force experience, went to business school, kind of tie all these different capabilities together. It's really representative of our overall workforce back at the COE. So if we don't know the answer, we know who to put you in touch with 99% of the time. So our primary services, we do a variety of different things. The big one are decision support studies. That's kind of where we earned our keep, if you will. Really starting with economic analysis when we first started. That was something that was required by regulation many times. There was a fairly healthy MILCON budget. So it's something a lot of the installations were looking for assistance on. Prior to us coming on board, a lot of folks would try to submit waivers, try to push waivers through things like that, where it wasn't really the right analytical effort for the task at hand. So we've done a number of different things. Business case analysis was another one. Total force integration. Jason did some of that work for us. If you don't know, Jason was one of our analysts for a while before he moved out east. And so different types of things, looking at how to best mix guard, reserve, active duty components, helping with those analytical activities. Economic impact analysis. Some installations, some MAGCOMs still highly encourage these. Some don't do them very frequently anymore. They used to be mandatory. Just kind of giving the local community an insight into what is our impact by being an installation in their community. And we can help with those. We have templates, a little more kind of professional look and feel to some of the templates, so we can help you all put those together. Community partnerships is something we've been involved with. Some of you may have heard about this. This is coming out pretty hard and heavy out of SAP IEI. I believe their goal is to have every installation go through this process by the end of 15. So if you haven't done it, keep your ears up. It's coming. This is one where some of the law was changed to allow more partnerships with the local community, so the city, state, local governments, and how they accomplish different things. So different education activities, different like civil engineering type of activities, some of the services types of things that we do, working with the city or state to try to kind of kill two birds with one stone. They're struggling as well fiscally, and so maybe we can provide them with something and they give us something in return. As an example, one of the installations we're looking at, the city has a pool that's right off base. The base doesn't have a pool on the installation, so there's some way for us to utilize the pool that they have and perhaps have something that they can utilize on the installation in return. So finding a way, rather than us building a pool when there's one right off base, find a way to work with the local community to provide that. Portfolio analysis, Capt Taylor is going to talk to you in more detail about that, so I'll let her cover that one. And then training. Like I said, business case and economic analysis training, our host tenant support agreement training, and decision support. Decision support when we started a couple of years ago. Initiative came out of SAP FM of trying to increase the utilization of decision support across the Air Force. Operationalize, I believe, is the word they use. As they realized these cuts were coming, back in 2010, then Secretary of Defense Gates talked about trying to find efficiencies, trying to find the best way to utilize every dollar that we have. Well, decision support's the best, or decision support's our approach towards doing that. And so we created a class around that to provide to the installations and MAGCOMs to assist them with their decision support activities, make sure we're being those good trusted advisors to our wing and MAGCOM leadership. So just a highlight of the projects we've done by MAGCOM. As you can see, they're all covered. The bigger MAGCOMs more heavily utilize us, as to be expected. So a couple hundred projects a year is typically what we've been doing since we opened in 2006.
Sure.
Yes.
Is there a particular turnaround time frame? Because I know BCA seems to be very detailed, so if we come to the request, what's the expectation as far as getting something back from you?
We've done them as quick as a weekend, and you know, they're taken as long as, you know, months. It sort of depends on the scope and scale of what it is you're looking at, how significant is the decision. And a big part of what we're dependent on is we need information from whomever we're working with. We can't do this on our own. We don't have access to all the systems we need and the historical data that you all will have in the installation. I'd say for a BCA, we can easily get them done in a few weeks, as long as we're getting information from whatever installation or match we're working with.
One more question.
Sure.
Do you have any reporting requirements as far as if you discover something while doing a BCA that needs to be up-channeled because there's some type of deficiency identified at that unit or something?
No, one of the big things that you know was important when we stood up the COE that they identified is we wanted to keep these things like private, if you will, proprietary to the installation. We didn't want to become an auditing agency or someone that's checking up on somebody or someone that's going to go run and tell the MAGCOM. We still maintain the where we allow the installations to maintain their chain of command. So we're basically, I'm showing on, well, here it is here, we're basically bench strength for the control organizations. So we report our information, and it's a big thing in the portfolio analysis that we're doing. As we find potential savings or as we recommend savings, they're for the installation to consider. We provide them to the wing commander, and we allow them to look at the recommendations. We don't then share with the MAGCOM and say, hey, look at base X, they could save all this money. We provide it to the installation. The MAGCOM knows that we did the analysis, but we don't share any of that information up channel. So here we are a part of the team. You know, we're not formally a part of your team, but this is kind of how we've always viewed ourselves, this is how we've always presented ourselves and tried to work with the installations and MAGCOMs. Like I said earlier, we're sort of bench strength for you all. If you need help, if you don't have the expertise or you just don't have the people to do the work, that's what we're here to help with. Support all the MAGCOMs, basically, you know, enhancing the capability. Trying to look at that by taking that fresh view, by not being married to the initiative and for a particular outcome, we can kind of look at a broader scale, broader scope, try to help you consider additional alternatives, new alternatives. Second and third order effects are very important with these things. Too many times a decision is made based on one sort of set of criteria or effects, and those sort of ripple effects, if you will, are not considered. And those are the ones that make or break an outcome many times. And back to that unbiased. You know, we hammer that home, but it is because it's so important. You think of any decision you make, you can tell pretty quickly where people fall on that decision when you hear them talking about it. When someone, as I was trying to say, if you're presenting a BCA and you feel yourself selling, you're doing it wrong. You're not trying to sell any type of initiative. You're trying to provide information to our decision makers, let them see what that information is, and where kind of a logical outcome, if you will, leads them to. But we're not interested in any particular outcome. As FMers, we should not be interested in any particular outcome. Best in all, our services are free. You know, again, going back to when we first started, people would call and they'd be sort of hesitant, and one of the first 5 or 6 questions was, so do we do your orders, or how do we pay for you to get out here? Oh, no, we're fully funded and we can come out. Oh, great, so then we have 4, 5, and 6 projects for you to do. So, you know, people would relax a little more. So people pretty well understand this now, that we're fully funded to do the work that we do, to travel as needed for the work that we do. So we're free. We're an additional resource, and that's pretty rare in the Air Force. Very rarely are you looking around and have additional resources being thrown at you. So use us. So now to business case analysis, one of the more specific ones. Again, FMSOC folks, it sounds like you've been working on these pretty diligently this week. What is a BCA? Kind of a multi-objective framework and trying to help us make our decisions. Looking at things through different ideas. This is where I like us to get away from the coster mentality, because coster sort of implies, well, you're looking at the money and the different ways to spend money and different sources of money. Well, yes, that's certainly one piece of it, but it's by no means the only piece of it. It's just one fraction of the analytical activity. Kind of a standardized format for decision making kind of helps people as they're looking through this at different places, coming in from different installations. They're seeing a similar product, a similar format into how these are put together. And so kind of helps standardize with that. We like that in the Air Force. And it also gives you a post-implementation mechanism, a tool, if you will. It looks beyond the analytical activity and goes into the implementation of the recommended alternative. So what are some metrics you might want to consider? What are some things you may need to communicate? What are some things you may need to train people on? It creates plans for those different things. So rather than just going in and presenting and saying, here's your decision, here's your recommendation, and the decision maker decides that, and everyone walks away and says, great, we're going to do that. And everyone also walks out and says, I wonder who's going to do it. The BCA helps you understand what are those next steps that need to be taken. How do you implement this recommended solution now? And so it sort of provides you with that tool of that jumping off point, if you will. So once the decision maker's made the decision, how do you begin to implement and execute on this activity? One of the early examples our tech director worked on was how to best accomplish strategic airlift. How do you go through these? Are you thinking outside the box, or are you simply looking at 2 Air Force aircraft? Are you considering FedEx or widely used industry solutions? Are you considering whether this stuff needs to be shipped at all? Are there requirements driving this, or have we always just been shipping things overnight because that's what we've always done? We've all heard that answer once or twice, right? So kind of stepping back, walk through the entire process, determine what your objective is, determine what some of those alternatives are, and help analyze those. So how do we do it? To support decision-making by Air Force leadership. Anyone that's ever worked with a wing commander or any wing leadership realizes they're not sitting around for days and days and days contemplating a single activity on their installation, right? They're running from meeting to meeting, activity to activity, dealing with all the things under their purview as wing commander. And so the goal of BCA and all of our decision support activities, BCA is simply one of the decision support types of documents or analytical processes we can go through, is to assist our leadership in this decision making. Help make it concise, help take all the relevant information and provide it into a digestible format for them, a usable format for them. It can be used for all different types of resource decisions. Like I said, many of the early ones we did were facility construction, renovation type projects. There's something a lot of installations were going through. Milcon budgets were pretty flush, so there's an opportunity to do this. It was helping them sort of prioritize which of those activities should they take on. Lease versus buy, we can assist with some of those, any investment decisions, and more now we're seeing program changes and activity changes. How do we best execute this mission with more limited resources, or something that's failing as an activity or struggling as an activity? How do we get it back online, or utilize perhaps new technology or new processes, process improvement type of activities to help better execute this activity? This is a critical part of the job. The most efficient investment decisions, helping the Air Force make the most efficient investment decisions, is a critical part of the job. It always was, but if you got it wrong, it wasn't such a big deal. Now, it's more and more critical. There's not extra money, the fallout isn't going to be there. The different types of things we used to be able to depend on or count on aren't going to be there. So we've got to make best utilization of the very limited resources that we have. The MADCOM level, as we all heard this week, that's going to be less people as well. It's not just money. So if you're considering resources, make sure you get away from just the money side of it. Look at the different aspects of making sure we're making best utilization of the various resources, people, equipment, different types of resources we have, not just money. So some of the key questions, is it financially viable, is one of the things we look at. This is the key one now. It used to be, yeah, we'll find the money. If it's important enough, we'll get the money. Somebody will get us the money. Well, that's not always going to be the case anymore. So is it financially viable? Can you actually achieve the dollars required to make this happen? Is it optimal? Are resources being utilized in the best possible way? There's lots of things we can do. People is a great one. We can all be doing different things, right? We can all be cleaning buildings. We can all be mowing lawns. Is that the best use of our time? Is that the best use of our activity? Is that what we want to do? Do we want to be cleaning buildings the way we always have, or cutting lawns the way we always have? Taking that step back and looking at things holistically. So don't always jump in and say, here's what we're doing, how do we best accomplish it? Step back and say, do we even need to be doing it in the first place? Is it feasible? Is it implementable? Again, like I talked about BCA, one of the nice things about that is it helps you execute the actual activity. And sometimes when you get into some of those implementation plans, you start to see some sticking points. Wow, this sounds really good, and it sounds like a good idea, and the capabilities sound great, but implementing is going to be very, very difficult. We're going to have some significant risks here, some significant assumptions that are going to have to come true that might help you back off a little bit of that proposed alternative. Basic package is going to be read by a decision maker. In general, we say limited to 20-40 pages. Through our decision support courses, we've almost even backed away from this some. Make it the right size for the effort that you're looking at. Don't spend 3 months looking at a $10,000 initiative. Don't write a 100-page analysis on a $10,000 initiative. Take the right amount of time. In our DS course, we even go as far to say back a napkin is sometimes sufficient for your analytical activities. BCA is a little more structured than that, but as you're doing decision support in general, don't always jump to a BCA and make it a 20 to 40-page document. That's not the point of this. It's more to give you some guidance on what it should look like in the end. Any of the more detailed information, just provide those as attachments. as these things should stand alone, realize that as you send these out in your email land, some people are just going to read these and aren't going to have you there as the voice track, or whom you presented this to as the voice track. So the analysis needs to stand on its own. So both the analytical activity along with the attachments should be able to support the entire story of how you put this analysis together. So that should include your data and your data sources, your cost derivation methodology, any of the change management activities, any of those implementation plan details, how do you envision that going forward, and any other relevant studies that you may reference or have utilized through the course of your analysis activity. Characteristics of a good BCA: improves decision support. That's the key of what we're trying to do. Helps decision support with the customer. Many times now, that's going to incorporate reducing costs. Our portfolio analysis, that was sort of the goal as we set out to do that, was to reduce costs across the Air Force with the various contracts that folks are utilizing at their installations. A comprehensive methodology. You don't just want to take one look at this. You want to have different viewpoints, different dynamics of the study. Make sure you're getting those varying viewpoints. Don't just look at it from one angle. It affects FM differently than it affects CE, differently than it affects other functionals. Are we looking at just wing folks or people within a particular group on the installation? Make sure you're taking those different viewpoints into account. Make sure the benefits outweigh the cost of preparation. Like I said, don't spend 3 months on a $10,000 study. That becomes overkill. Risks are always important to identify. A key component of business case analysis. Make sure you've identified those and ways to potentially mitigate them if they can be. Again, helping the decision maker, just because there's risk doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Sometimes there's ways to mitigate it, sometimes you just accept the risk. It's sort of a joke that as Air Force, our key mission of flying aircraft at Mach whatever is a pretty risky endeavor. But when it comes to resource and business decisions, we become completely risk averse. It's like we're afraid of any and all risk when it comes to other activities. We want to fund out all the risk, less not possible, and becoming less and less possible. Make sure your assumptions are clearly defined. These are all forward-looking. We're looking into the future. None of us have a crystal ball. None of us are able to identify what's going to happen tomorrow. So you got to make assumptions, make them well stated, and highlight those for the decision. Help them understand that you are taking assumptions into effect. None of this is a guaranteed outcome. And then address all those change management issues. How you're going to implement this, how that's going to occur, potential sticking points, or who's going to be on the hook to implement those various change management steps. Some common problems, starting right from the beginning, a poorly identified objective statement. As you've been working on, some of the first things you should take on, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? Have we identified the right problem? And once you've done that, establish an objective statement. What is the objective of this analysis? Again, going back to the beginning, many people would send us an EA package with, the objective is to construct a new dorm for X Air Force Base. No. The objective of the analysis is to analyze the best way to house airmen. It's to analyze a certain broad activity, not to present a particular outcome. Very different in what those two things are. Not enough alternatives. Again, many times we saw, well, status quo is not feasible. Well, yes, it is. You're doing it today. You might not like it. You might hate it. You might get complaints about it all the time. But you are doing this activity, unless it's a new mission activity. You're doing this activity in some way, shape, or form today already. So status quo is almost always an alternative, as undesirable as it may be. But look at other alternatives. Brainstorm. What are some other ways we can tackle this problem? How can we be creative in tackling this problem? Don't go through the same way we have in the past, because the way we did business in the past wasn't working and certainly is not going to work going forward. Not sufficiently explaining our alternatives. Some identified assumptions, sort of implying that they're there. Go ahead and list them out. Make sure folks know what you're talking about. The deficient benefits analysis. Basically just not enough thoroughness in your analysis. Not covering the documentation, the benefits, the risks to the level you should. Many times that highlights a predetermined outcome. Hey, I just need to write this BCF so we can go ahead and construct this new facility. Let's get it done. Let's get it out the door so we can start building. No, you're trying to analyze an activity, you're trying to determine the best overall outcome. Spend the time looking at those benefits and risks and costs associated with that activity. Some more technical things, incorrect use of inflation indices, incomplete sensitivity analysis, things like that. Sensitivity analysis is a great tool to utilize when there's unknowns. Help your decision maker, many times there'll be a question of, well, what if this costs double, or what if this schedule runs double? Run sensitivity analysis around those things. Highlight those for the decision maker. Help them understand. Doesn't even matter. We did a project once where folks were building some sort of laser platform, and It was tens of millions of dollars, and their concrete cost was $250,000, let's say. We don't think that's right. We think it might be $500,000. Who cares? The total bill is $30 million. $250,000 doesn't make a difference one way or the other. So throw double the cost in there and press on. So you can help with that with some of the sensitivity analysis. But don't get wrapped around the axle. I guess is the point of that story. Realize what the scope of the analysis is you're looking at. Don't worry about all the little tiny moving parts when they won't affect the overall solution one way or the other. So a few of these BCA examples that we've done in the past. A couple of these go back a number of years, but a community center that we looked at, a space utilization project, and a public-private venture. So the first one, a Chapel Community Center, the objective was to determine the most efficient and effective way to provide personnel with a variety of support services. Basically, there was military family housing needed a community environment. So it was a new military family housing community, if you will. And there was a desire to stand up some mission support services. The base gym was serving as the community center currently, and it's located about 8 miles from another Air Force base. So a couple of bases in the area. We highlighted a number of different alternatives that could be looked at. Status quo, continue, again, not the desired way, but you can continue on with how you're doing business today. Keep working out of the gym. It's certainly a way to press forward, and probably one of the less expensive ways to press forward. But utilize the adjacent Air Force base facilities, rent some space off base, consolidate some modular facilities that they had access to, new construction of office space, or new construction of the entire chapel and community center. So the recommendation was to pursue the smaller construction alternative. This helped meet the objective of the analysis of the mission outcome and provide some of those critical needs to the base. It was less costly than the gold-plated solution of building a new everything. Utilize some of the existing facilities at the nearby base. So leverage some of those things. As folks go through consolidation efforts, I know Buckley by us, they're consolidating some of their personnel. They did a big space utilization study and are moving people around. Is that going to leave some facility space for other mission activities? Those are the things that should be looked at and understood. And then it freed up funding for other projects. Many times things, we look at them singly. Can we afford this project? Well, yes, you can, but then you can't afford projects 2 through 10. So what's the impact on some of those other projects? You need to step back and help people understand as well. Another big one we looked at was space utilization study. I don't know how many people have heard 2020. It still hasn't really caught a lot of interest yet. We've heard it's because, well, the CE and wing commanders that are going to be on the installation in 2020 aren't there yet, so their hair's not on fire yet. Basically, a desire to cut 20% of the infrastructure footprint on the installations by the year 2020. This came out in 2010, 2012 timeframe. So this was an installation that was trying to get out in front of it and looked at a large facility in good condition that they had slated for demolition. But then they had 29 other older facilities across the installation that had all varying high maintenance costs, safety issues tied with some of them. Many were beyond a useful life, but several were of historical value. So it had to go, it could only be renovated a certain way, potentially couldn't be demolished without great lengths of approval chain, different types of things. So in total, over 1.7 million square feet of space, and it was joint use space, so DoD decision. So we looked at different alternatives, the status quo, keep doing them the way they are, live with some of the safety issues, things like that. You could renovate, consolidate, and demo a number of the, 30-some different facilities. And so this provided multiple different options with different renovation and demo mixes. So pick one or two that sort of make sense and sort of press with those. You can always adjust as you press forward. Or a brand new construction and demolition effort. At the end, the recommendation was to renovate the large facility, utilize this large facility, don't demolish it, put it to good use, take some of the mission activities that were going on in those 29 different facilities and consolidate them into this much larger facility, and demolish 18 of the aging facilities. So avoided some of the historical value buildings by not demoing everything. So again, look at sort of a sliding scale. It's not, okay, we have to demo all 29. We can, keep the historical value, historically protected facilities in place, but demo some of the other ones that are not providing any value or costing us more money for maintenance, those types of things. So benefits of the Air Force is the best value recommendation. Yeah, we could have built everything new and everyone would have been happy and everything would have been bright and shiny and that would have been fantastic. And you still would have been able to accomplish the mission. But that wouldn't have been the best value to the Air Force or taxpayers. basically we should be good stewards of taxpayer resources at the end of the day. It gives the largest total square footprint reduction. So again, keeping some of those longer initiatives in mind, some of those longer things, kind of killing multiple birds with one stone. We're able to accomplish the mission for a lower resource requirement, but also helping to meet those 2020 goals. And help reduce some of the risk, got rid of some of the safety concerns, some of the issues we had in the installation, or some of the facilities that were aging and causing us some of the issues. We're able to get rid of some of those facilities, so removing some of the risks associated with those. Third is a public-private venture we looked at for an overseas activity. They were looking at different ways to have people come overseas. And we determined the objective to be determine the OHA rate needed to entice a public-private venture vendor to build military family housing at an overseas base. Some background on this: it was an overseas base and wanted to increase the number of families that PCS with military members. Right now, there was no housing available for that. A private-public venture, there had been a feasibility study, but by someone in the industry. So there's some question as to how biased that study was. And the vendor could build housing if we provided a higher OHA rate. So as we look through this is one more of the technical analysis we've done. Maybe you see down there kind of a crystal ball output. We've only done a handful of these over time, but sometimes they do become relevant and useful given the analysis we've looked at. I know folks more in the acquisition community see things like this all the time. So we use costs provided by the feasibility study, produced a vendor cash flow report, created a point estimate, did a number of different things utilizing that old study, but then also doing some of our own digging and looking at some of the information available from the installation. We compared these different things and, like I said, ran a crystal ball analysis to look at multiple different outcomes and likelihood of those different outcomes. And so as we went through, the recommendations show that many of the numbers presented in that initial study were unrealistic. They were overly optimistic. And folks can do this when they're not necessarily tied, to an industry outcome. A lot of times this happens at the installation too, where we have a desired project or desired initiative. We think the boss wants to head in a certain direction. We'll become overly optimistic in the information we provide sometimes. Realizing, either consciously or subconsciously, that by doing that, we're going to make this alternative look better, more desirable in the end. And so as we go through this, we have to be careful, and that's where that objective view, that unbiased view, is very helpful. It's very easy to unintentionally sort of polish up an initiative when you don't really intend to. So the benefits of the Air Force on this one was that objective estimate, provided additional and better decision support documentation, and reduced the risks of the overly optimistic costs. It doesn't change the costs, it just highlighted that, hey, they're overly optimistic, you can still move in that direction. Yes?
Most of what you do probably has cost attached to it, but have you done any projects where you make the process more efficient that doesn't have a dollar attached to it at all, pretty much?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, most do, and even those, if it becomes more efficient, there's usually a cost savings of people's time or things like that. But yeah, process improvement studies are something we've done a good deal of. FMSOC 21, anyone that remembers that, it's had varying levels of success over the years, but we were heavily involved in that and reviewing a lot of the activities. And many of that was simply an efficiency of the process. But many times that does result in time savings and things like that we'll attribute a soft dollar savings to, where it's not budgetary savings, obviously, but saving your time allows you to spend your time doing something else. So yes, many times we'll look at process activities as well. So an overview, BCAs are only as good as the effort. If you kind of go in with a predetermined outcome in mind and sort of write that story, you're not helping anybody out. You're just checking the box, as we like to say all the time. We're not a big fan of checking the box activities. They're not value-added activities. We understand that sometimes there's required activities. Fine, we'll go through the required activities and crank those out. But when you do your analytical activities, you don't want to treat that as such. You want to make sure you're providing your leadership with good decision-making information. They are decision support documents, like I said, part of a wide scale, wide scope of decision support documents. So as you go through this, don't come out here thinking everything's going to be a VCA. It's one of the tools in the tool belt, to use an overused analogy. There's many different ways that you can look at this. as you go back to your installations, if any of you have us come out and do the decision support course, we talk more about that, the very scale that you can apply to your decision support activities. At the end of the day, you're helping your leadership choose between the different options that are available to them. They may not be aware of the different ones. Many times our leaders are presented with a problem and a way ahead. Or maybe they've already determined that there is a problem and a way ahead. We help them understand kind of what the problem is, whether the problem's fully understood, and what some of the different solutions are for that problem. Not to tell them they're wrong, not to tell them they looked at it incorrectly, but just to assist them in their decision making. Like I said, think back to what their day is like. They're running through multiple different things all day long. So while they might have an idea, and they themselves might sell that idea, the likelihood that they spend hours and hours and hours thinking about it is pretty slim.
So I have another question for you. In the very beginning, in order for us, the workers, to request your services, do we have to have commander buy-in? Or if, like, in the case of the program that I manage, I think that there's a better way to do it, but I can't even get leadership to listen.
Right.
But if I had a way of presenting it, maybe they would listen. Could I call you directly and say, can you help me kind of come up with a way to present this to leadership so they'll hear me out?
Sure, we'd be happy to help stuff with that. Basically, the request needs to come from within the comptroller organization.
Right.
And I always say that because sometimes CE will call us and we'll just ask them to, it's the one bureaucratic step we'll take is we'll push them through FM because we are tied to FM. We're there to support the FMers. But realizing that many times the FMers are supporting the functionals, we don't turn them down, we just guide them to the right way. So in your effort, someone within the comptroller organization that requests our support, and we'll take it from there. And it's not formal, it's a phone call, it's an email. We have a SharePoint site where you can put a request in. Very informal, basically a simple phone call or an email. So as we assist the leadership, it's looking at those different things too. It's going to become worse and worse in this fiscally constrained environment to just look at the dollar figure. There's other things tied to that. Think of a car as your car shopping. Every one of us have bought the cheapest car we could find the weekend we went shopping for cars, right? Of course not. There's safety concerns, there's performance concerns, there's reliability concerns, there's all kinds of different things. What's the cheapest way to run the Air Force? What's the very cheapest way to run the Air Force? Don't have one. Don't have one. Get rid of us. There'd be some shutdown costs, but at some point, there'd be $0 costs in the budget for the Air Force. There's probably some problems with that, though, right? Some national security concerns, some continuing on with the way of life we've become accustomed to concerns, things like that. So it's a matter of spending less is not always the right answer. Spending the right amount to accomplish the mission that we're desiring to accomplish. And not just through dollars, through our resources, and utilizing those resources in the best type of way. Any questions on BCAs? Like I said, one of the many tools, go ahead.
I just had a couple of curiosity questions.
Sure.
Do you guys also do this for like the Army finance, because it's strictly Air Force? And I was also wondering, when, I know it's not all about money, but when sequestration hit, do you guys get overwhelmed with BCAs?
So we don't directly support any other services, but there have been instances where we've worked with them, both from if they have similar type of activities, are we taking similar approaches, or things we can learn from them. So more in the how we operate type of way. We kind of build relationships that way, but not a lot of work for them. There have been some joint commands that we work for, as long as there's an Air Force tie-in. We'll assist them, so like Transcom, CENTCOM, things like that, but not directly to the sister services. Sequestration definitely increased the requests for some of the courses we had going. Support agreement was a big one, because if you weren't running your support agreement program well and weren't getting those reimbursements, I mean, that was literally free money, right? So that became sort of a, hey, we really need to make sure we're claiming these reimbursements that we should be getting. And so sort of requests for those increased. Different BCAs, we see a scale. I always like to put it as there's a series of thirds. There's a third of people who see this stuff coming and are trying to get out in front of it. There's a third that are sort of like, something's changing, I'm not quite sure how to handle it, I'll ask for help where I need it. And a third that's like, this is just another run through, the same thing we've been hearing for decades, it'll work out. And so we get different levels of response as we go through the sequestration, furloughs, all the different types of things now, this new round of cuts. We're even trying to figure out, as IMSC stands up, how does this work? Does IMSC know how it works yet? How do we best provide our services to the Air Force now that we're going to be part of an organization that works with all the installations rather than kind of the MAGCOM installation structure that existed before? So yes, we get a lot of requests, but it's not as like directly correlated to major activities as we even think they would be as well. So good question.
What's the relationship, if any, between GUARD and COE?
The GUARD, we do some work with the GUARD. We've done, like I said, TFI studies where we're looking kind of the best mix with those different types of, with the 3 different reserve guard and active duty. We've supported some GUARD activities, some GUARD analysis in the past, kind of more at the kind of your MATCHCOM level, if you will. But we have done work with the GUARD in the past. Yeah, so if you have any questions, if same kind of thing, if we can't do it or if we just don't have the resources to do it, we'll point you towards somebody who can help you out.
I was just curious, I work at Robbins in the base cost office,
Okay.
and so we support the whole day, so I'm just curious, if someone from Robbins called you guys, would they be directly to us, or can they use either of the resources? Or if like we get overwhelmed, because we're getting a lot of specific email type PCA because of the requirement?
Yeah.
And so are we able to kind of offload some of our excess on you guys, or?
Yeah, I mean, so you guys are kind of a unique component. We've definitely supported Robbins a great deal in the past, but there's a little more of a line there because you guys have a deeper cost team in the past that kind of work it through your leadership, to be honest, just from the standpoint of we know in the past you guys were deep enough and kept your resources. When the COE stood up 8 years ago now, you all were able to keep your resources. And so while some of the MATCHCOMs gave up resources to stand up the COE, you all did not, and by design. And so you were able to keep the analytical workforce in place and many of those things. Now, if you're needing help and help around the edges, you know, it's short to say we're not going to turn anybody down. We've prided ourselves and we've never said no to anyone. Basically, we've found a way to help everyone. But as I was talking about earlier, we just found out we got a pretty significant cut as well. So how we're going to operate in that new environment is going to be a challenge. But always give us a call. We'll help you figure it out in some way, shape, or form. If it's not us doing the work, we'll definitely sort of assist you in finding the right
Yeah,
outcome.
there's someone out within the base that contacts you guys.
Yeah,
Do you
or
direct them back to us? I was just curious, because some people don't even know we exist.
right, and so we'll always direct them back to the FM folks. Yeah, so if a functional calls us, we'll say, yep, we're happy to help. And many times we know who they should call within the FM. If not, we find that out quickly, and then, yeah, definitely have them work through them. We just don't want to get in a situation where we're doing the comptroller's work for them. They might be able to do it. You know, that they might be able to handle it. They might be able to do it. So we don't want to step on their toes. It's not what we're designed to do. We're designed to assist. And so, yeah, we would definitely point it back towards you all. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do y'all have like a long wait
No. There's, I mean, Captain Taylor's one of the team chiefs of the science projects. We usually sign them within the week.
Yeah.
And someone will be in touch with you. Now, they might not jump right on it. They might have some things they're working on. But no, there's not really a wait list per se. People will engage pretty quickly.
What's the mix of civilian and military?
We have a good mix. We got our first junior enlisted here over the last few years. So we have a few staff sergeants, a few tech master sergeants, and then 6 captains. Yeah, right now. We have a deputy that's a major, but has been deployed for, feels like forever. Yeah, so a good mix, civilians and military coming through. Those are all, the proportion isn't really changing, just the total size is changing.
About a third military.
But, yeah. Yeah, so for you military, as you're looking for assignments, give us a call. We've had people do that, and you know, if it's something that's interesting to you, yeah, definitely seek us out. Any day-to-day questions, ask Jason. He was the light for a while, so he can give you the real answers after we leave. Any other questions? Yeah.
I had a question. For some of these studies, when you find efficiencies and stuff like that, is there stuff you publish for like all of the Air Force? Hey, we found it in a more efficient way. Every base could possibly do this. Do you guys have published reports like that?
We don't have published reports like that. We're trying to utilize our SharePoint more effectively to do some of that, sort of share some of the things we found over time as we, again, leveraging portfolio analysis, as we've seen things in multiple bases, just because we did so many studies on a single area. We did over 20 in a year. We saw some themes. So we did some we call them white papers on those to kind of highlight, hey, here's some activities where we've known consistently across the bases that you're running into these types of issues. And in those cases, without naming the bases, ran them up to like their staff level and saying, hey, here's something we're seeing out at the kind of execution level at the installations that you may want to look at across the Air Force type of thing. So if you call us, that's kind of the best way. We don't have like a good automated tool to share that, but with our kind of resident knowledge of those of us that have been there, we'll be able to find studies that are relevant and help assist you through that. But unfortunately at this point we don't have a good sort of data warehouse or best practices site. It's something we've talked about with kind of all the FM entities for a while. How do we best provide that, how we present that, and just haven't come up with a good solution at this point. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
We learned that these things can be used later for inspections and GAO can come in and look at it and things like that. Have you experienced any of those reviews and what kind of things have they pointed out? Because with so many assumptions, I'm wondering exactly what can be looked at, what can be questioned, because they're assumptions.
The only one we had any sort of review or audit process come through was post AFSO 21. And it was looking at all the AFSO 21 studies that we had done and how were those put together. And they had no issue, because like you're saying, a lot of it is, as long as you're stating the assumption, as long as you're adhering to the pretty flexible reg that's associated with VCAs, you're doing it right. And so it's not really been audited or checked that heavily, at least anything we've seen. And people will call us if questions come up through as they're coordinating on the analysis and things like that. So we're pretty sure we get the call if any sort of audit activity or something came around that, and we just haven't seen that. Any thoughts? I'm not sure schedule-wise, will we get press?
Fine. Yeah. You want to do portfolio analysis?
Yeah, sure. Quick break or jump right in?
I'd say jump right in.
All right.
Yeah. On the portfolio analysis.
Okay. Well, good morning. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys about portfolio analysis. A lot of what Aaron was talking about with BCA, the concept of the BCA is that applied here, but this isn't that 20, 40-page paper. This is a maybe 1 to 2 page paper. This is a quick turn, short, that's applied decision support to something that's going on the basis right now. So I'm really excited to give you some examples of ways that we've done this portfolio analysis. If we haven't explained it yet, I'll go through what exactly that is. I'm Capt Taylor. I have been at the COE for just over 2 years now. I've done mostly entirely budget. So for me, this is fantastic because I can use some of my budget background from being at the base, being an analyst, and apply the decision support here. So I did base level budget, I've done management budget, I've been a comptroller at a special operations group, and then I also got to work some foreign military sales in Iraq for a year, and then I come here to Denver. So I'm excited to be here. Last time I was here, I got attacked by birds down at the beach, so if you guys haven't been down yet, just be aware. It hasn't happened to me yet, so I'm pretty excited with the big trip so far. So why portfolio analysis? Well, everybody knows this issue with the fiscal environment right now. Go back to FY13, just last year. President's budget for the Air Force was about $110 billion. That's what we asked for. What actually got enacted, what actually came to us in the appropriations bill was closer to $105 billion. $4 to $5 billion left. That's a significant chunk of money. And as we talked about already a little bit, that was because of the sequestration. FY14 Authorization and Appropriations Act actually gave us a little bit more money because of the Bipartisan Budget Act gave us a 1-year relief from that. So in FY13, how did we meet our sequestration bill? Yeah, we cut some TUI. Yeah, we cut some contracts. But really, it was so late in the fiscal year, there wasn't much that we could do. We furloughed our civilians. We sent our civilian home. We said we can't pay you. So we never actually did any long-term fixes to our budget. FY14, we had that 1-year relief. We weren't really forced to have to go and find long-term fixes. So FY15 really is when we're having to still work through these budget issues. Yeah, we're doing some force shaping. We're doing some headquarters reorg, cutting 20% from our headquarters staff. But there's still some things to be done at the bases. And that's what we're doing here with contracts. And so I just point that out with all these budget numbers and stuff, because a lot of times people think, well, we already went through sequestration, we're going to fix that issue, we're done. We are not done. In FY15, we don't know if that budget's going to look more like it did in 13 at the sequestered amount, or if we're going to get another budget relief. We don't know. And so it behooves us to go look at our contract specifically and see what kind of excess or efficiencies we can find there. And so that's what we did. In FY13, they came out and they said they would put 20% on the board, said find 20% cut efficiencies in your contract. And so at the COE, we said this is an excellent opportunity for us to take what we do best, citizen support, and apply it to something that's going on at the bases right now. So we already had the expertise in citizen support. We already had these concepts and ideas, ways to look at these analyses. We had the cost analysis expertise, and we knew how to look at them from the business case perspective. But what we didn't really know a whole lot about was that contract-specific expertise. So we had a couple folks that had some information on it. We sent a couple folks to some training, and we just internally did some training sessions in our office, and we kind of got everybody up to speed on what do we mean by contracts, how do these work. At the same time, we developed a process that we would use, and then we went out and we found a test base. So we said, hey, can we look at your contract? Can we apply this process that we just developed and see how it works? And since then, we've gone out to over 20 different bases, and we've applied this process. We've continued to tweak how we do this, and we've continued to find efficiencies and cuts. And so that's what I'm excited to show you today. This is one of those examples of where we as a COE, as a center of expertise, being able to go out to all the Air Force bases, we can gather some of those best practices. We have found some insights and some trends that I'm going to share with you here today. So first of all, why this process? Why do it like this with the portfolio? So I'll explain to you a little bit about how we do this. So when we go out to a base, and I was surprised by this. When we pull a base's contract, some bases have upwards of 100, 200 contracts annually on their bases. I was shocked. That just seems like an awful lot. The ones that come to mind are your custodial, your refuse, those types of things. But there's all kinds of contracts out there. And we just do not have the manpower or the time to look at every single contract. I mean, hopefully that's being done at the bases anyways, but as far as like an analytical approach to looking at these contracts in one time, we just couldn't do that. So we had to come up with a way to look at the entire portfolio of contracts to figure out which ones would be the best for us to look at. And so we applied some grading criteria to this list of contracts. We pull them from EDA and CRIS. We find out what the period of performance is, what the dollar amount is, and we apply this sorted data to figure out which contracts would be the best for us to look at. And we end up with a 1-to-N list, and we end up picking usually 12 to 15 contracts at a time. We'll go out to the base, we'll say these are the contracts we want to look at, get their buy-in, maybe we change the list a little bit, and then we take it back. We have one of our senior analysts, they go out, they brief the wing commander and the comptroller commander on what we're going to do. They come back with a list of 12 to 15 contracts. We assign them a team of 4 to 5 analysts. Each analyst gets 1 or 2 contracts, and they start digging. And so that's a little bit about the process. So why do this portfolio process? Well, one of the biggest benefits is that top bullet, that trading space. Like your BCA, we follow that citizen support process, where we identify an issue, we come up with alternatives, we evaluate those alternatives, and in the end, we make a recommendation. But with portfolio analysis, we go one step further. In addition to making the recommendation, what we think is best for this contract, we give the commander additional options. We say, sir, if you're willing to take more risk in this particular area, you can get this much more additional savings. Or maybe if this isn't an area you're willing to take as much risk in, we'll cut back a little bit, and then you'll only get this much savings. And so we do that for each contract, and that allows that wing commander that trade space, that ability to take more risk in one area and maybe a little bit less risk in that area. So that's why we think it's beneficial to look at multiple contracts at once, so that we can offer that commander some additional options and they don't feel stuck into, oh, I have to find 20% in this one contract. It doesn't necessarily have to work like that. Also, by doing this, it just keeps contracts from the forefront of your mind. A lot of these changes, there's just mission changes going on, And so when you're remembering what's in your contract, and that's actually one of the biggest things, is just understanding what is in these contracts. What is it that we are paying for? Is a really good reason to do this drill in and of itself. But when that's in the front of your mind, when you have mission changes, you know which contract you need to go back and double check and look at to see maybe I need to adjust those. We do not do this alone. This is definitely one of the areas we will get out there and work with a cross-functional team. Most importantly, the contracting office. This process is owned by contracting. So when we get out there, we need to meet with the contracting office early and often, make sure we're building that relationship, make sure they understand the reason that we're there and the reasons we want to look at their contract, because we need their help. They're the ones that understand how these go and how they work, and we cannot do this alone. We need their help. At the actual reviewing of the contract level, our analysts are on the phone talking to the contracting officer representatives, the core, talking to the functional areas, subject matter expert, RAs, financial analysts, anyone that has information, because we really need to dig in and find out what's going on in this contract and what are the different options for us. This is an example of that trade space that I was talking about. So this isn't going to add up because it's just a snippet, but you can see we'll take a list of all the contracts that we reviewed. This is that baseline, and so we're looking at FY15 to start saving some dollars in 15. So we'll put our recommended alternatives, but we'll also give them other options. If you don't need to take so much risk, or if you want to take some more risk. So this is just an example of a chart that we're going to outbrief to the wing commander that gives them that trade space of opportunities. Now for each contract, we'll end up briefing out 1 to 2 charts to give the commander an idea of what it is that we'll look at. In addition to that, we provide a Word document output that works through the background, what we dug into, what we found out about the contract, the different alternatives, the cost, and all those additional details. And the idea there is that that ends up in your hands, in the hands of the financial analysts that you guys can then go read, and then apply that to additional contracts. Like I said, we only look at 12 to 15. So there's a lot more contracts at your basis that we have not looked at, that hopefully that you guys will go back and do that on your own. So we've done this so far at over 20 bases. We've covered a few MAGCOM. Started in FY13, have been working all year long in FY14. And so we have looked at over 300, almost 400 now contracts. And so by looking at that many contracts amongst just a small office, we cross-pro a lot of information. And so because of that, we're able to come up with some observations, some input, some things that we feel are necessary to share. And so these next few charts that I'm going to show you, we actually briefed out to our MAGCOM representatives in hopes that this information is going to trickle down to the bases. So that's why we thought this would be an excellent opportunity to share with you. You're going to get these slides in your student folder, so hopefully you can take these back, and there's some information in here that you guys can go use to start looking at some of your contracts out of your bases. But I'm going to give you some of those observations. I'm going to talk through just some of them. Basically, observations from the field, I said we go out and we meet with your wing commanders, we meet with your functional commanders. In general, it has been extremely receptive. Wing commanders understand what we mean by portfolio contract analysis. They understand they have to look and they have to cut 20% if you want to throw that number out there. And they're willing to make those difficult decisions. We've been surprised at times the level of risk that some, not surprised, it's their decision, the level of risk that commanders are willing to take. Funny story I like to tell is we did a refuge contract once, and I'm not sure if this was one of yours or not, but there was a wing commander that we explained the refuge contract, and we were paying every time the dumpsters got dumped, and so we did an analysis to find out how full they were, and they were only like 9% full when they were being dumped. And so the wing commander got out of his desk, goes downstairs, and looks at the dumpster that's sitting right outside his office and says, "Sure enough, that's empty." And so I think that's fantastic. So just looking at smarter ways to do this. And so your commanders, they're really excited about this. They're looking to you guys for the citizen support, for understanding what's in these contracts, and to find out what's going on. That last bullet there, just use it to explain. Sometimes contracts are the answer. As FMer, it's easy for us to go in there and say, this is spending money, we don't need it, cut it. We don't need this, we can have our airmen go out there and do this. We can have the flyers go out when they're done with the plane, clean the plane themselves. Very, very graphic ideas. But our wing commanders are very aware of everything that is on their plate. They're aware of all the additional duties, the increased stress, increased workload, and it is not always the answer to insource or to bring something in and just cut the contract and let our own folks do it. That is not always the answer. And if that is something that we're recommending, which is often something we still look at, you just want to make sure that you're identifying the risk of, and sometimes we call it opportunity cost, sometimes we'll use that manpower amount to calculate the opportunity cost of pulling somebody away from their primary duty and having them do something else. But just to share with you, this is something that we commanders are very aware of, and so they're willing to let contracts so that we can let you guys focus on your primary job. And sometimes that makes sense, even financially it makes sense to pay somebody a certain amount. We pay a flyer way too much to have them go scrub in the bathroom. So that concept. These are some of these common areas that we've looked at. I'll let you take a look real quick here. We've seen all kinds of different contracts, but these are the ones that we've kind of seen almost at every base, especially those top three. Those are what we call the big three service contracts. We've analyzed those at almost every base that we've been to. And so I've got some slides on a few of these contract areas. But first, just some general insights. A lot of our contracts have been let using this contract type of firm fixed price. It's very popular with the contracting community to use this type of contract because it just sets a fixed price, and then it puts the risk on the contractor to provide within that fixed price. Downside of that is we don't always get the fidelity into the numbers. We don't always understand very well what the cost drivers are. And so we're not saying that that's a bad contract type to use. We're just saying that when you guys are analyzing your contracts, make sure you have a general understanding of the different types of contracts that are out there. And this is where you need that relationship with your contracting officer, because they're the ones that understand this the most. But just have a general understanding, and don't be afraid to recommend something different. And I'll give you a couple of examples on the next slide where maybe something different than firm fixed price may be better. So mission changes. Firm fixed price contracts, sometimes it's difficult to kind of change the amount that you contracted for. Or maybe something like a time and materials where you're paying per each delivery or per something may be a better idea. And so that's where this second example, transient alert. With reduced budget, we're reducing flying hours, and transient alert is what we pay for every time plane lands at our bases. And so maybe we have a contract that's written for 400 planes landing, and in reality, only 100 are landing. So maybe that's something where we can go back and change the contract, or maybe we can change the contract type to whereby we just pay every time a flight lands. So just things to think about. Insights by contract area. I won't go through all of these, but you have these slides so you can read through. If you guys got questions, let me know. I talked a little bit about refuse. You know, you think that we would pay our refuse contracts in general by the tonnage. They weigh it somehow and they bill us for the amount of tonnage that they've done. But in reality, it's typically paid for by the number of times we dump the dumpsters. And so that's why we look at utilization rate. How full are these dumpsters when we're actually dumping them? And so maybe there's opportunities for consolidating dumpsters. There's different alternatives for us to consider, knowing how the contract is set up. Recycling. You know, I guess maybe I was being naive because this is such a good thing for the environment. I thought this was financially a good thing, but it actually costs us a lot of money to recycle. And so this is one of those areas we're not saying cut your recycling programs. We're just saying have a general understanding of how much we're paying for. Take a look at that non-quantifiable benefit of environmental impact, and how much does that weigh? take a look at the differences there. One of the 12 bases actually had a profitable program. I think that was the one base that was using a NAPCON program. So just think outside the box. What are maybe some other ways of us to do this?
What are some of the costs that go into recycling that make it so
It's
not by only buys, yes, but
yeah,
it's charges?
it's like taking out cardboard and putting it together and taking it out to the place. It's about the same as records, and actually in some cases it would be cheaper if we just added that tonnage to our refuse contract. Or there's so much waste, empty space in our refuse contract, we would save us on the recycling altogether. We could just add it to refuse and not have to pay anything extra for space in our dumpsters.
So is that just fine recycling as cardboard, paper, and plastic?
And I'm not sure how many bases are actually doing recycling, not all of the bases.
Excuse me. I got a question for you. With this initiative, what role does contracting have in trying to ensure their contract, when they're writing a contract, that they're trying to,
Right.
reduce
Yeah.
costs?
Well, and they do that. And it's just things are changing so quickly. Sometimes these contracts were written, 5-10 years ago, and they just keep being renewed, and we never really look more in depth at how we're doing it. Obviously, when the contract's set up initially, we think it's the best thing. It's being reviewed. The functional area that develops the requirements has identified a good requirement, but just over time, things change. And so that's why it's good for us to get back out there and look at them to see what's different. Contracting, they review their contracts, they do the administrative reviews, making sure things are getting billed properly. But just having that outside viewpoint from the financial manager, having a little bit more understanding of what it means, asking those questions, applying some decision support skills, goes so much further in being able to find new efficiencies. Just having that outside viewpoint. But it is key to build a relationship with the contracting officer, making sure they understand we're not auditors, we're just trying to help. And they are the same thing. They're part of the Air Force, they want to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and they're doing it as well. So oftentimes we find that we're working with the contracting officers to go in, and we're helping them out.
As was mentioned earlier, a little bit earlier, that sometimes if you're working on a project you're married to, you get kind of married to that project, and it doesn't matter. So having you all come in from the outside is like an independent look at that thing and make them think differently about what they think is the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. And sometimes we get called just for that reason. Somebody knows the right answer, they just need somebody outside to say, yes, this is the right answer. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that interesting that we found as well is in working with the functional areas, sometimes you can get married to a project. And so it's just a matter of explaining what it is that we're doing, trying to gather the information and building that relationship. It's really big in building that relationship so we can explain what we're doing. We're not here to audit you, we're not here to take your job, we're just here, what is the best thing for the Air Force? Anything else?
Yes, ma'am. Does your portfolio analysis, do you look at contracting's procedures as far as resourcing, or is it just the contract itself? Because a lot of restraints that folks have is the rules that contracting sets, well, not the rules, but they have to abide by small-owned, veteran-owned, stuff like that, where you can find a better rate for service going with a larger company, but it violates all the rules of contract procurement.
Yeah, and that's, in general, we don't get into the weeds that much in looking at the actual price. We're looking a little bit more larger scale in general. Do we need the contract or not? But you're absolutely right. Sometimes if you were to go out one step further and go dig in to find out what's the best price out there in the community, a lot of times there's restrictions. And no, we do not get into those specific rules, because you're right, contracting, they do have to abide by, I can't think of the name of it.
I know it.
Federal acquisition regulations.
Yeah, the FAR. It's like the stick. You guys ever seen that book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Like at my base, this recycling is a big deal.
it's like our number 3 unfunded requirement is we did a small level. We probably should have asked for COE's help on that, not my decision. But anyways, they did a small level analysis in terms of, well, this is a very unprofitable thing we're doing right here. You know, maybe we should shed ourselves of it. But I guess there's all these federal requirements. You must have a recycling program of some sort. So we try to push the bill up and say, well, this is a go do it. We got to do it. You know, please give us money. And see, it'll be kind of interesting on the IMSC up about these common out levels of service. And okay, you can no longer have a Cadillac version. Here's the Ford, drive it like it kind of doing.
And that's a good point too, understanding your local rules and regulations. And that's another reason why we're working with the contracting office and their functional area experts, because they're the ones that understand all of those rules as well. Thank you. So talking about reimbursements, this last one is an interesting one. This is one of those contracts I just didn't realize was out there. Anytime you have like a kitchen, a lot of times we have these lease trap contracts to remove debris. So there's our defects and your bowling alleys, your clubs, your food courts. A lot of times we find on bases this is all on one big contract. So please make sure that the appropriate funds are only paying for what they're supposed to be paying for, and that your ACs and NAF establishments are providing the necessary reimbursements for their racetracks and operators. Dining facilities, we've looked at a lot of dining facilities. This is kind of like that transient alert concept where we set up a contract to pay for so many number of meals, but when you actually kind of dig into the numbers, we've noticed that we're not actually utilizing the meals. Not as many people are going to the defects as we had thought they would be. And so there may be some opportunities for reducing the contract just by renegotiating the amount of meals that you request to be provided. There may be some savings from reducing hours of the defects open, but there gets a point where there's just so much overhead in having this building open where those things may not get you those additional incremental savings that you're looking for. And so that's why in some places we're looking at some of those larger scale, bigger risk alternatives like shutting down your defects or moving to different ideas. Has everybody heard of the codes, common output level of service? Air Force established these codes for a lot of your service contracts. We found that some managed towns are abiding by them. Some managed towns are going even further than that. And then some aren't quite there yet. And so this is a good thing that I think will be good with the IMSC as well. It's just establishing these common output levels of service. What is the standard across all Air Force bases? And then they also did standard PWS's, performance work statements, for some of your big 3 type contracts. There's a standard PWS that the contracting office can use to start writing those requirements. Postal services. You know, we map postal services almost every day for our dorm. Just thinking through if there may be a different way of doing that. BOT. Huge contract. A lot of times everything is just rolled into one big BOT contract. Which was done for economies of scale and reasons. There is some savings to be found by rolling things together. But one of the most frustrating things about these big box contracts is, so whereas like your refuse contract, we can get an idea of how many dumpsters where they're being emptied. On your box contract, refuse will be one thing, one line item. This is how much we're paying for refuse. No additional details. There's no way for us to look into this any further to find out what are the cost drivers, what am I paying for. And so, yes, there's the benefit of rolling them together, but there's also some benefit of pulling them apart. So that's another thing in the box contracts that we like to look at is what makes sense to be together, where have we found economies of scale, and what can be pulled apart and might be better doing a different contract. The other thing to think about with these is a lot of times you have one contractor bid on this big box contract, but that contractor is not doing every service. They're subcontracting contracting it out. So each level is a different level of overhead, just an additional layer of management costs. So whereas we might think we're finding economies of scale, we might actually just be adding another layer of bureaucracy where we're paying another layer of management. So just something to think about in these bulk contracts. So that's everything that I have to give you. You guys have these slides. I didn't cover all of the areas, but if there's something that you guys have at your basis, just give us a call, let us know. Just to tie it back into what you guys are doing, this is no different than those concepts that you guys are learning with your BCA, with your EA, just in general with decision support. There's an issue, we dug down, we have an idea of what that issue is, we have the root cause. Let's come up with some different alternatives, some different options. Let's think outside the box. What are some different ways of doing this? Let's evaluate those options. Not just cost. Cost is a big factor, especially with this portfolio analysis, because that's the main reason we're doing this, is we want to cut costs. But it's not the only factor. There's other things to consider. There's your benefits, there's your risks, there's your stakeholders, there's the, is it implementable? So those other things to consider. And then in the end, you're going to make a recommendation. And so it's just a way of putting some thought behind these different issues that we face as an Air Force. What's the way forward? And just overall giving some good support to your commanders so that they can make good decisions.
3 levels.
Thunder. What are you talking about?
All right, so that's all I have. Are there any other questions on portfolio analysis or the BCAs that Aaron talked about, or the COE in general? Everyone's ready for the 350 questions.
Is the SharePoint accessible to everyone? I know you said you might
Yeah.
we put data out there that we can go and look at.
It's that site. I know it's got a funky shortened thing. It was meant so you don't get the long version. So yeah, it's on this slide. I think you guys should have these slides in your student folders. That's our SharePoint site, that first link there. That's our email. That's our general email that goes to about 4 or 5 of the different team sheets in the office that we can check that, and then it's our main number. So yeah, please call us, email. And that's the fantastic thing. Those of you in the counselor squadron, our services is not something that you need to go to your budget officer, your counselor commander. If you just have a question on something you're working, just pick up the phone and call us. We like to talk to people. I think what we do is fantastic. I'm really excited to be at the CUE. It's an excellent opportunity for military folks to get out there and learn. It's a little bit different than what you typically see at your so it's an excellent opportunity. Yeah, just pick up the phone, go call.
And just a comment, ma'am. I'm from the Joint Base McGuire, and the COE provides, as I was speaking earlier, if you can get a significant grouping, depending on how many support agreements and decision support, the training is outstanding. I mean, especially in support agreements, we have such a diverse, we almost deal with every service, and we also have different locations. That training is outstanding as far as what you need to identify and reimbursements and steps along the way. So if you can get a group of people together that actually deal in those programs and contact the COE, it's an outstanding training. It'll really help.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we have the post-tenant support agreement training. We offer a 3.5-day decision support training, and then we also have a specific BCA training. And if you have a big enough group, we'll come out to your base.
How does your decision support training differ from the one that Air University does?
We have probably a little bit more flexibility. The DPSC course is focused DoD-wide. We use a lot more operational focus, a lot more day-to-day.
Are the training sessions tied to FM certification?
Decision supported. Decision supported.
Yes.
Decision
Let me see if I can get this right. Our operational decision support course offers decision support proficiency level 3, which equates to what you need for your FM certification level 2. Thank you for that.
Nope, you sure don't think that down on the head, the answer is.
How long have been your decision support?
I'm sorry.
How long has the decision support course been?
The one we do is 3.5 days, but we also, we've done, consolidated it into a 1-day course. We've done a 1.5-day course. We've done a couple hour DCOs. So we've offered multiple versions based on what it is.
What about for agreements? How those different?
The 2.5 thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
The BCA course, is that directed more towards just getting people a general overview of BCAs, or like my cost office, would that be something that they would benefit from to kind of get another perspective?
Probably more of the overview, because we don't even, because we have a tool that we call Create, I don't know if you guys are.
Oh, yeah.
We don't, we have a, I think there's a briefing on it in there, but we don't actually get in and use it. I think there's a briefing on information. And on the SharePoint site is actually the site for all of these courses. So you guys can go out there and take a look at the